I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money, and this is Filmmakers On. Today I'm talking to horror filmmaker Dustin Ferguson. He's directed well over 100 feature films in less than a decade and is creating his own indie empire. We talk about what sets him apart from other low-budget filmmakers, the importance of good marketing, how he shoots films so fast, and how he's repackaging some older titles for release. You'll want to stick around for this one. Let's do the interview thing. What is it about your work right now that excites you the most?
I feel like right now I'm in this transitional period where everything is almost uncertain, but in a good way, because I feel like how I'm evolving and like things that are falling into the past and then like what's ahead of me. So I think it's just more like the excitement of what's ahead right now for me, especially with the recent projects I've done with the bigger names.
So in transitioning, you mean like kind of transitioning from, the micro budget, smaller stuff into a new realm?
Yeah, and of course that's always where my heart is. But I think ideally all of us, when we start out, we want to become as big as we can, in our field. And so I think that I'm finally past the point of holding on to my grassroots and trying to grow a little bit and make it, more sustainable.
Yeah, I totally respect that. It reminds me actually, there was a Kurt Cobain quote back, of course, when he was still alive. And he said somebody was asking him like if he ever wanted to be a rock star, and they're expecting, it's Kurt Cobain, Mr. Artistic Integrity, to say, well, no, it's all about the music, blah, blah, blah. But he said, I don't think there's any musician out there that at some point or another doesn't picture themselves on a big giant stage, playing their guitar in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's what got us into it in the first place. When I do, like everybody, I'm sure before you start as a director, like, I'm going to go make no budget movies. It's going to be awesome. It's like, that's just what ends up happening. It's never usually by choice. And I think that people that stick with it and grow their craft eventually do graduate from that just as a natural transition, especially if it's something you want to be able to make a living on.
Yeah. And with your work in particular, I think it, especially as you've went on, your work lends itself to the larger budget, to a bigger milieu. You could still make them super cheap when you need to.
Right.
But you could I could totally see, Angry Asian Murder Hornets being a $20 million movie as well.
Yeah, exactly. The transition's not too difficult. And that's what's great about it is I can still bring in that flavor and attitude of my earlier films into the bigger budget stuff. It doesn't have to look like Avengers or Transformers. It can still be fun, but just have a bigger budget.
There's more people right now making movies, making, super low budget movies than probably at any time in history. What do you think has led to your success? Like why, why have you made it? Or why are you making it?
Overall, I would just say it's the consistency. I'm my own cheerleader on social media every day promoting my stuff. I'm always working. I don't really take days off that often. I take it, it's the biggest thing in my life. And I think that certain situations always will elevate you. In particular, I think the pandemic in a lot of ways was helpful for my career. It's originally before the pandemic happened, I had a certain idea of the films I was going to make while that was going on. And then I ended up going in a whole other direction, making these large concept, small budget films like CGI monster stuff. And I think that honestly is what kind of catapulted me out to where I'm at now, because that stuff started to go viral in a time when nobody else was making these. So, and I didn't really think about it that way at the time I was making them, that would sort of really help me out in bringing a lot more additional attention to what I was doing. So I think a lot of things really just lined up at the right time then. And I really grabbed onto it and ran with it, did a whole pandemic series. And now I have movie deals I'm doing just based on the films I was doing.
Yeah, I think it's the classic thing of opportunity meeting, preparation. So
Right.
there is an element of luck, but you have to be there for it to happen.
Yeah, the luck, it won't work out for you if you don't know what you're doing and have the
Exactly.
experience.
Exactly. So for anybody out there that, says anybody making ultra low budget movies and they're just lucky if they're making money, you might get lucky once. You might get lucky twice. In the course of a career, you might get lucky 3 times, but you
Right.
don't stay lucky over the course of, say 100 movies.
yeah, you don't make a living on luck. You know, you might get a good opportunity, but then you have to use that opportunity to really build a career.
You shoot your movies pretty quick.
Yeah.
What kind of prep do you do?
It's interesting. It's sort of been different throughout the years, but what I've kind of perfected it into is I prefer to be my own writer now, because for me to be able to really bang out things the way I do and do it well, I have to have a full understanding of what the material is. I struggled in the past with other writers with, like, you know, they give me this 80 or 100-page script, and then it's like you're supposed to have this thing memorized to be able to go and create the film. And oftentimes there'd be creative clashing or just stuff that doesn't fit within the budget I have, where it just made the whole concept a lot more difficult. It took a lot more time. And I found that there's certain things that I'm good at that I prefer to do. And then there's going to be other things I'll bring other people in. Like, for example, I prefer to write, direct, and edit, but I ain't about to also do all the effects. You know, I can't do CGI, you know, like stuff like that. It's like you bring in those kind of people. And I think that that's really what I built into at this point.
Yeah, and at least as far as I know, didn't initially, like, you didn't do a lot of writing, like it's something you've kind of grown into, correct?
Yeah, and essentially like a necessity thing, because I am doing so many projects. I can't afford only to pay all these different writers. It's just a lot to have to do. And when you're trying to have this constant output, like I try right now, my record is about a movie a month. It's kind of like where I'm at. And when you're doing that, you have to oversee a lot of the process just to assure that it gets done on time. You know, because I know often, you know, writers can take longer to write the script than maybe I would do when I know what basics I need to hit anyway. So I can just go write the script. Like, what's the difference if I know what I'm going to shoot anyways?
I've been on, I think, 2 of your sets, maybe 3. And one thing that struck me was how much it really, like, everybody says their set is like this, but they're usually not. But like your set literally felt like people hanging out, you know, but at the same time, we're getting an exceptional amount of work done. So usually it's kind of one or the other. You got, you know, kind of a hanging out mentality, and, you know, maybe something gets shot, maybe it doesn't, or you have that, like, you know, positive, you know, friendship, we're all hanging out, but you're getting a lot done. Like how do you keep that like set energy? How do you run your sets?
You know, everything comes down from the top. You know, I'm the one ultimately that is going to set the precedent of the mood, the tone, the pacing of what's going on. And if I can bring a cool and calm demeanor to set and be relaxed with everybody and make it like we're all just hanging out and having fun, then ultimately that is what it is. And I think if I can go into it prepared enough, like I know what I'm shooting, I got it all scheduled out, like by the hour, what we're doing, you know, then we are already on the same page when we get there. So we can know what's going to happen. There's not people waiting around, not knowing what's going on. We have a schedule. We all just bring our A game and we get it done and have fun with it. And that's ultimately why people keep coming back, you know, because I hear a lot, people are like, man, I just got the script 2 days before I had to shoot this other movie. And man, you actually got this planned out, and whoa, we're done 6 hours early. And it's like, to me, I'm not like going and be like, we're going to get this done 6 hours early. It just naturally happens because we're prepared enough and we all know what we're doing and we enjoy what we're
doing. I've noticed you've been doing a lot of fresh repackaging on some of your older films. How did that come about?
I think just time, you know what I mean? It's the next step. Like, we haven't really graduated yet into full HD with everything, because I was doing the DVD store and like VHS releases and VCDs and stuff like that. And I think that it's just a new era of trying to have better quality product, more accessible material, stuff that could be marketed to wider audiences. A lot of it, you know, like there's the reboot of Terror Black Tree Forest. So that's like one that we're putting out on the Blu-rays, and like Hell the Screaming Undead. It's really just our transition period. I didn't want to have the same old tired art, because a lot of the art I do myself. And like with anything, I'm growing as an artist. And I'll look at artwork I did 2 years ago on a movie and be like, you know, so I'll go and like do something different. And I like it now at least enough. So that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, and totally. My next question was actually about art. So I know on, you know, a lot of releases, depending on what it is, you'll have distributors. They do art. Like I know you work with Wild Eye a lot. They do some amazing art. But you yourself are gotten to be a pretty good graphic artist.
Thank you.
And you know, this is, you know, kind of technical bullshit, but what program do you use, and like how did you learn?
Like everything, I'm self-taught. I just use Photoshop. You know, I've gotten, I mean, it's with anything, it's kind of similar to editing. It's just like getting to know the program, all of the little functions of it and the little tricks you can do to convey a certain image. I've learned a lot about layering and filters and shading, which is similar to color grading in films, where you want it to have a certain aesthetic. When you look at it, it doesn't look like you just made it in Photoshop. You know, so there's a lot of that. I think just over the years, I've just gotten better and better with the more I've learned, because I do so much. I'm always doing art. Like every day, I'm like working on a poster or something like that with artwork. So I think that's just really what it is. When you're doing that most of the year for several years, hopefully you get better at it.
You know, do you find doing it? This is something that happens to me. I'm not a professional graphic designer. I do some of my own posters. I've gotten better at it over the years, but I find with that, at least for me, I get a little bit stuck in my ways. So like I learn how to do something and then I do it, and then I kind of have trouble breaking out of it. Do you actively, you know, like learn new things in regards to the graphic design? Do you seek out that knowledge, or do you just kind of tackle it as the problems arise?
I'm always trying to seek out new ways to do things. Usually, same thing with my films. I'll like see something that will inspire me, like a nice ad slick from Shutter, and I'll like literally like screenshot that on my phone for later, because I'll be like, that's going to be my inspiration for my next SCS ad, you know. And so then that's usually how I learn a lot of things. It's kind of what I think any filmmakers should do, is like, if you want to play with the big dogs, you got to act like the big dogs. And it's like, if I want my advertising to look slick and professional, what are the professionals doing for their ads? You know, like they have a certain kind of window box, they have certain kind of text and placement and imagery. It's like, if I can mimic that with what I'm doing, then it sort of gives that same presentation. It just looks more professional. And I'm sort of am learning along the way, because it's not like I went and studied how to do it this way. I'm just literally looking at what they're doing and figuring out how I can apply it to what I do.
So like you've worked with a few name actors in the past, but it seems like you've really been stepping that up a little bit this year. I know you just got done with Tom Sizemore on a movie.
Yeah.
How do you approach attaching talent to your films?
I guess at this point in my career, because I want to make it a career, a lot of it is marketability. You know, like if you're going to get in Walmart, Walmart's only going to take something if it has star power, because they know that it won't sell otherwise. It's very rare that people will make blind buys anymore. They have to be sold on the artwork and the names that are attached. And so I've just sort of made it a priority with the budget every time. You know, and like with the deal I have now with Wild Eye, you know, I'm doing these movies for hire with them. They provide a separate budget for a name.
Oh,
And
that's
so
great.
like, yeah, so it's like, it doesn't actually cut into my budget. It's not this big sacrifice to hire someone like Tom Sizemore where it takes half my budget. I can have that and then still put my budget where it counts. So then it really, really shows. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is like the approaching people and convincing them to be in my stuff. And it's the more you do that, the easier it is, because then people can look like, oh, you had Eric Roberts? Sure, I'll do it. Oh, you had Tom Sizemore? Sure, I'll do it. And it just gets easier.
Hey, you. Yeah. Hit that like button. That's it right there. Yeah. I've noticed also you've been branching out into starting to do some like TV series type stuff.
Yeah.
What's your distribution plan with that?
Right now it's all over the place, because obviously I have SCS TV, which I do. It's like a YouTube thing I was doing on Saturday nights. I'm bringing that back in October. So some of the shows are going to go there as premieres before the Blu-ray releases. But then also I have a deal with WGUD TV. That's After Hours Cinema. Lee Turner, he produced Brothers 2 and The Beast Beneath. He has obviously his own access to a TV station. So he's going to premiere Bubba there. So it'll play in 3 different states live on TV, and then it goes into syndication where it'll be on like 20 other stations. And so that's sort of where I'm starting to branch out, is I'm going to try and put stuff through him and other local stations, start out like on a local level, and just kind of like build my way up. Because I've told this to other people too, that I grew up in that era of the 80s and 90s where we had programming blocks. You would look forward to TGIF or SNCC or whatever, you know, Friday, Saturday night. Yeah. And so I've always been obsessed with providing like entertainment for people, like a whole package, like a presentation. And so that's sort of what SCS TV is, and it's evolving into this broadcasting through other TV stations.
Like when you have an idea for something, why do you decide to do like a series as opposed to a feature? Or like with The Last Roommate, didn't that start out as a movie and then became a series?
Yeah. It's sort of just sporadic. I feel like it depends on the situation of the movie, like what might lend itself better to being a movie or a series. I think dramas in action are good for series because it's easy to have like a central conflict for each little story. Whereas like it's a little bit harder with horror because you want to always be building to something. So it's easier to keep it capped at like 6 episodes. And so it's kind of what I've been doing is like these mini series. It's more just an experiment. Like with Bubba, I want to see how it comes off to audiences as a series, as a continuing story. And the same thing with Last Roommate, whereas like the movie itself was inspired by like the 90s erotic thrillers. The TV show is more like Solomon's Red Shoe Diaries or something like that. And so like we're trying to, we're experimenting with different styles and just kind of seeing what sticks. Like I'm just doing a bunch of them right now and seeing what takes off and what works.
When it comes to social media and social media promotion, how important is that to you? And how do you basically go about it?
For lack of a better term, I feel like sometimes I'm a slave to it because we're in an era where people have very short attention spans, unfortunately. And that's just thanks to how TV and media and everything is. And so it's kind of like a necessary evil where like I have to always have content out there to stay relevant in today's world. If I went a week being off of Facebook, people might stop buying my movies. They'll just completely forget. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you have that constant reminder every day, it's like, oh, this is going on. This is going, there's something to be excited about, something to look forward to and plan for. And then that's sort of like securing your place in the future. If like, I'm announcing now this thing that's coming out in a month, then I can build the hype and know that in a month, they're going to make some money on that. And then if you just have a lot of things staggered that way, it's easy to always have things to promote. Like when I started out on Facebook, it would be like a struggle on what I could post. Like, oh, what am I doing today? And it's like, now I'm just like, what should I mention out of the 50 things I could mention, and just keep to the important stuff.
And hopefully, as you're growing, you can start adding like social media managers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like start taking some of that off you.
That's what I really want. And mostly too, just to make it less personal. Like I like having the personal connection with the fans and the followers right now. But you have to take the evil with the good too, because with that, then I see the bad things people say. I see the trash out there. And it's like, at some point I have to sever myself from that to keep growing. So there will be probably a point when I'm not running my social media, but that's okay. That's just part of the growth.
What's 2022 looking like for you right now?
Oh man, so many movies, so many things. Just more, it's like we're doing bigger stuff. I announced we're doing a sequel to Apex Predators. So we're doing a lot of stuff, just to grow the brand more. I want to get more into TV. I announced that I'm right now pursuing joining the Directors Guild. And so that's been this whole giant thing. So hopefully, assuming I get in, my projects are going to completely change from that point forward, because then I'll obviously be eligible for SAG productions and TV and all of that. So really what I'm doing right now with 2021 is the practice, like seeing what it's like to do TV productions, working with bigger actors and all of the things I didn't do prior, so that it's not like I'm just being thrown in next year.
And the last time we talked a little bit about some of the general approach to the scripts and how they're like you would use a lot of like improv and stuff like that. Are you still doing that, or is that changing?
Yeah, sort of my whole career, the scripts are shorter because I like to allow for more interpretation and ad-libbing and artistry in the films. Like my scripts will kind of look more like an outline because it'll say what we're doing and what's supposed to be said. But then when we're on set, it's like it plays out in an organic fashion. And I feel like that's what makes my movies relatable on the budget that they're at. People can watch them and they just have a certain feel about them they can connect to. And if I keep that throughout all the movies, then that's my visual style. That's my approach. And I think that if you know what you're doing, you don't have to have every word scripted out for the actors, because the actors should know what they're doing too. And so far, as long as I'm working with the right kind of people and we're prepared, it's really worked out in our benefit because it just saves a lot of time.
Right. Do you see continuing that on into like the larger budget stuff? Because there are larger budget directors that work like that. Absolutely. It's just rare. So like, is that an approach that you plan on keeping, as you get into the multi-million dollars and stuff like that?
Well, I imagine, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but I guess the more money you have, the more serious you have to take it, I suppose. Like if I'm working with like $2 million, I'm going to force myself to, script it out and make sure every beat is hit and all of that, because then your reputation's really on the line. Then everybody's really looking at you. I think it's okay right now to sort of like find my footing and do things this way. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do it that way in the future, but I have a feeling in certain situations, it's not going to really be an option. You know, I'm going to be stuck with a script, following things a certain way. So it's something I'm going to have to get used to doing as well.
Yeah, I've always wondered how like directors like Mike Lee and people that do it on a larger scale, like I'm always curious how they actually like schedule out. Like it's easy when
Right.
you're doing something like, like on the level that we're doing stuff, because we got, what, 10 or 12 people on set maybe,
Right. Right.
but when it's like 300, like I'm just yeah, I have no idea. And I know people do it. I just don't know how.
But it's like a team of people. That's the thing. It's like I wouldn't be able to just do it all on my own like I am now. So it's like a whole other ballpark, obviously. But there's not a whole lot you can do to prepare yourself other than just do it. And so I
Yeah.
guess like on this level, I'm doing everything I can to prepare myself.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, has your budget like start to go up? Do you find yourself when you are hiring out people, for other jobs that say you used to do, you have trouble letting go of some of that control?
I feel like it's actually become easier. It was harder at first. I felt like very possessive of my stuff and, like had to micromanage everything. And now I'm sort of just like relieved to not have to worry about it. It's sort of like with the Bubba thing, like I wanted to do a TV series, but I was trying to like figure out how the hell I was going to schedule myself to do this. And then finding a really quality, talented director that could do it, that was sharing the same vision, was just a relief to me. It's like, you go right ahead. Just show me the episode when it's done. I don't even care. I trust you. Like it's kind of gotten to that point with a lot of things.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Because I know you had some trouble with that in the past. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's nice
I
when
think
it works out.
it does. It's the whole karma thing. It's all come full circle. Now I'm in a really good place, especially with Meat Hook Massacre. I've got really good people attached to it. It's growing into this whole other thing now. And I'm able to move on to these other films. So I'm at a good place.
And you can check out more great interviews on my Filmmakers On playlist right here on YouTube. But whatever you do, keep making movies.